What was that big political rant we were going on about last time we were talking? I don't even actually get it.
It's a complicated thing, but it's important that you understand that for decades, the goal of US and allied Western governments has been the domination of global economic activity for the purposes of obtaining resources and wealth. The way this is usually discussed is in terms of military invasion, but economic imperialism can be just as effective.
How are they the same thing?
Okay, so the liberals may bemoan the messiness of US-led military conquests, but at the same time, they celebrate the same goals achieved through trade treaties. What you get there is a continuum from free trade to war, two sides of the same coin.
How do economic trade treaties lead to domination? If your position makes sense, lay it on me. I want to get this.
Let me put it this way. Free trade bodies, such as World Trade Organization, with their investor-state dispute settlement mechanisms, can overrule national laws that might affect potential profits for foreign corporations, and private secretive trade tribunals can impose trade sanctions on governments. Free trade is one of many methods the American and other Western governments use to impose neoliberal trickle-down economics on developing countries. So, under this doctrine, society has to revolve around the economy, and therefore the market is supreme above all else. So by this standard, government has to limit itself to helping businesses succeed. And they do this by eliminating safety regulations, privatizing government services like Medicare and pensions, letting the market run itself, and allegedly creating wealth for all.
What's that got to do with imperialism? What's the tie-in with neoliberalism and economics?
So what this translates to is complete economic domination of foreign nations by the US and other Western countries. And that turns the whole world into a capitalist playground, allowing Western corporations to ruthlessly exploit the entire planet for the benefit of wealthy elites. So with this economic arm twisting, developing countries may be nominally independent, but still be under the control of Western financial powers. So there you have it.
You were trying to convince me that the West exploits the rest of the world economically. Seriously, how does it do that? I just don't see it.
Think of it this way. The opening of developing nations' economies has often been forced upon them by the conditionality rules of loans from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. What happens is that developing countries become trapped in debt to these Western-controlled financial institutions, loan sharks, and this leverage is then used to impose a one-size-fits-all structural adjustment program upon them. Under this so-called reform, the financial and banking sectors, as well as other industries, are forcibly open to foreign investors. So in addition to losing control over investment, they also get coerced into a program of privatization, elimination of food subsidies for the poor, cuts to education, healthcare, senior services, etc., to make the market the master. The private sector, which is controlled by foreign companies, can run things, providing goods and services for those who can afford it. So what happens is they take over a functioning system and they capitalize on it, and people who need those services at affordable rates are the ones who suffer because they can no longer afford privatized prices.
Well, they've cleaned it up a bit, haven't they?
Not really. In response to international protests, there's been some minor debt forgiveness here and there for highly indebted nations. Officials will claim reforms have been made in their structural adjustment programs, but the game remains the same. Some countries, such as several in sub-Saharan Africa, wind up giving out far more in debt repayments than they receive in foreign aid, a constant financial drain that keeps them impoverished and vulnerable. Also, following the 2008 global economic collapse, the International Monetary Fund imposed austerity measures on countries drowning in debt, demanding sacrifices from workers and the poor to pay for the investors' greed binge.